If you are the sort of man who performs at work, who shows up when you need to, who does the hard thing when it needs to be done, but you still lose control around food when you least expect it, the problem is not your discipline. Think about it. You already have more discipline than anyone will ever develop. The real problem is that discipline is the wrong tool for this kind of problem, and no one has told you that yet. So what happens? You keep applying more of it. It keeps not working, and you keep concluding that the problem is you. So let me tell you, it's not you, it's discipline. And discipline is the wrong tool for this. And stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why discipline was always going to fail and what to actually do instead to gain back control around your eating and lose weight for good. I want to show you something that took me years to understand. And when you do start to understand it, the self-blame stops. And no, I'm not going to tell you to be kinder to yourself. Basically, once you have the evidence in front of you, it makes it impossible to continue believing that this was a character flaw or anything wrong with you. And I spent years studying the psychology behind this and working with men around this problem. And I honestly believe that the fitness industry just doesn't understand it. And not because they're hiding anything, but they're just working from the wrong or outdated model. So there are 3 things I want you to understand by the end of this video. So number 1, why discipline works in every other area of your life except this one, except the weight loss, except the control around food. Number 2, what's exactly happening in your brain when you lose control around food. And number 3, what the right tool actually is and why it works where discipline never could. And do make sure you stay for all 3, because the third one only makes sense if you've understood the first 2. So number 1, here is something that should not make sense, but often does. The men that struggle most with food are often the men that have the most discipline in life, that have the most success in other areas. They run businesses, lead teams, train consistently. They do hard things without complaining, but they just can't crack this one thing, this food problem. So if we think about it, if discipline were the solution, you or anyone else with this problem would have solved it a long time ago, right? Why hasn't it worked here? Like, what is going wrong? Think about a smoke alarm that goes off every time you make a toast. That alarm isn't broken, it's acting exactly as designed. It detects smoke and responds. The problem isn't the alarm, the problem is that it's calibrated to respond to something that's not a threat, that's not a problem. And you don't fix that alarm by pressing buttons on it or maybe changing the battery. You fix it by understanding what it's actually responding to and recalibrating it based on that. And the first thing to understand with you is that your nervous system, your brain, has done the same thing with food. At some point, eating became associated with relief from discomfort. So stress, pressure, demand from your day. So at some point in your life, food gave a response which gave you some relief from discomfort, at least briefly, and your brain learnt that. Basically, discomfort arrives, eat some food, and you'll feel better. Simple as that. And that's not a discipline or willpower problem. That's efficient automatic learning. That's how your brain works. So there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain and nervous system are working exactly as they're meant to do. It found a relief from discomfort and built a pathway to it. And using discipline to fix this problem is like taking painkillers for a broken bone. They manage it, they might work for a while, but they're not fixing the broken bone, and eventually they stop working too. You have to keep taking them to manage that pain. So that's the paradox. The more disciplined you are, the more you feel like a personal failure when your eating stops responding to that discipline. So I know what you're thinking now, like, if it's not discipline, what is it? What's actually happening? So that leads us on to point number 2. So after this video, you may notice something you've never really kind of connected to before. The moments where you lose control with foods are probably not random. They probably follow a pattern, and that pattern has a very specific explanation. So this part of your brain up here is called the prefrontal cortex. And it's part of your brain that is responsible for logic, complex thinking, language, and decision making, not automatic choices. Under stress, two things happen. First of all, your body floods with stress hormones. Secondly, this part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, switches off. This part of the brain that helps you make the right choice, the part that does logical thinking. And here's the part that changes everything. Remember, I said about what your brain has learned around how to control stress, eating. So in those moments, that is when eating is most prevalent, when this part of the brain switches off your decision making. So that willpower and discipline that you are most relying on when that automatic pathway activates and gives you that craving to reach for food is least available in those moments, because this part of the brain that gives you that logical decision making switches off, or at least turns down. So it's really important to understand that you're not weak. The very tool you are trying to use in those moments is it's almost going offline, like I said, when you most need it. And there's a second layer to all of this as well. So for some men, at the end of the day, there is still this residual stress from the day that needs dealing with once they get home. Your prefrontal cortex has maybe not fully come online yet, and your brain is still looking for relief. And that's why so many men describe this threshold to me, evening eating, where they feel just like something just completely collapses. They've done well all day, but then something happens and they just give in to food, which is the fastest and most reliable way to relief. This is not a discipline problem. You are not weak. Remember, your brain has learned this. So it's timing, and timing isn't a discipline problem. And if this is starting to make more sense to you and you'd like to understand your specific version of this pattern, I have a quick assessment in the description below. 3 minutes, and it will direct you to which pattern is deriving your specific behavior, and it's worth doing after this video. So we have the paradox from point 1 and then the mechanism. So the only question that matters now is that if discipline is the wrong tool, what is the right one? So that is point 3, and the point that most people never reach. There's something worth saying about men who appear to have sorted their eating through discipline. For some men, the pattern was never that deeply rooted. A bit of accountability, a new plan, and for some men, it genuinely does resolve. That is real. It's just not the experience of most men that end up here. But it's also really important to note that for a lot of those men that appear to have solved the problem, when you actually look at it from a different point of view, they haven't. They just found a more sophisticated way of control that makes them think that they've solved it. So what do I mean by that? It's all those like crazy diets that people do. So it might be skipping meals to avoid the problem completely, cutting out entire food groups, finding a way to control things down to the minute level, and living by rules that have to stay in place forever just to keep things under control. And here's the thing that nobody ever talks about, or maybe even realizes. Those men have the physical result. And I did too. Like, I was there. And there's nothing wrong with wanting the result. Like, I want to really make that point. Like, you can want to have a healthy, fit looking body. But usually, and sadly, for these people, and again, me, there was a price that we pay that we often kind of end up justifying. It's that mental noise, that background noise, the rules, the need for control, the things we organize our life around to make this still work for us. And thinking about it back to when I used to do it, I thought it was completely normal. I justified it. It was easy because it was my routine. And like I said, and you will probably say too, it gave you that body, so you were able to justify it. And other people maybe complained, or maybe you put yourself with people that did similar things, so it became normal. But then again, maybe you do see the price. Maybe it affects your family life. Maybe you have to cook your own food, or you change the routine of your day, you do more exercise, you eat less at certain times to be able to eat with your family. I don't know, you tell me. What is it that you do to make this work for you? And sadly as well, like most people never find that there's actually, or never realize there's actually another way. Think about it like having a recurring leak in your house. Every single time it rains, you put the bucket out. Water comes through the ceiling in that same corner. So you put that bucket there to manage the rainwater. And you could say that, yeah, the problem's managed, it's fine, there's no water on the floor. Or you could find the leak in your roof and fix it. No more rearranging the furniture so it doesn't get wet, or checking the weather forecast every time you go out to make sure you put the bucket there if it's going to rain. Discipline is that bucket. It manages the problem. Understanding, however, fixes the root cause, the source of the problem. So the right tool isn't more structure, it isn't more rules, it isn't a better system to manage it, at least for now. The right tool is understanding the pattern, what activates it and what interrupts it in the moments when you need it most. And the specific point I want to make here is without using force. And understanding a problem doesn't make you softer, like not using discipline. It makes you more precise. Think about it, like aim at the right thing and the results follow. Aim at the wrong thing and no amount of effort or discipline will solve that. So if you think about it, you haven't got a discipline problem. You've been given the wrong diagnosis. And what happens when the diagnosis is wrong? The treatment will fail, right? No matter how much you try or how often you take it. And so the solution is understanding what you're actually dealing with here. And if you'd like to start doing that, there's a free assessment in my description below. It will guide you through the understanding you need to know to like start solving this problem in the right way with the right tools. So it's down there in the description at the end of this video. And now you know that the reason your fat loss hasn't worked isn't because of you, it's because of your approach. And that's nothing to do with you as a person. That is the approach that you are using, the tools, the understanding you have of what needs to be done. But everything I've told you in this video is completely useless without understanding your specific pattern, because the mechanism I've described affects every man differently. So go and watch this video on the screen now, which describes exactly what's happening in your brain and what to do in the moment. And if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe as well.